when I say about peak performance, what are the things which come in your mind?
It's usually mental agility. That's what I think of first of all, because it's very easy. We're visual people. We'll see a before and after picture of something. We'll think, oh, it must be genetics or whatever it may be, the protein powder, it's steroids, whatever.
What do you think that, how can I make my neck up portion strong?
People focus on motivation, but motivation fails us when we have a death in the family, when we get injured, when we feel bad. Be harder to kill. Whatever you can do to create more resilience to be harder to kill is all going to come from the habits that you make. And a lot of the time, it's doing things that you don't want to do.
With a small round of applause, with the very few people in the room, can we please invite on stage Sajeev Nair and Kris Gethin.
All right. Okay, so I think could be a session which you all must have been waiting for. We met on the breakfast table and Kris was asking, what's that we're going to discuss? I said, I have no idea. Because when it is Kris, I think there can be a lot can be discussed. So, as the topic says peak performance, Kris, in your terms, when we, peak performance is a word which people use right now commonly. So, when I say about peak performance, what are the things which come in your mind?
It's usually mental agility. That's what I think of first of all, because it's very easy. We're visual people. We'll see a before and after picture of something. We'll think, oh, it must be genetics or whatever it may be, the protein powder, it's steroids, whatever. But it all comes from their brain. So I look at a transformation in someone's performance from the neck up, not the neck down. So when that is in control, the rest of you is in control. There's this huge disconnect between the body and mind and who we are, but they're all one. We are this vessel, and I think it's a lot more internal than what we think. We want peak performance from our brain, from our body, to all of our organs. It's everything as a whole.
So you're saying neck up is the most important thing?
That's the priority. That's the priority. Of course, we want to control the health, but the health from the neck down comes from our thoughts. We have a lot of thoughts and decisions that we make every day that either heals us or harms us.
But unfortunately, people are not very conscious about what they feed to the neck up portion. They are very conscious about what they feed to the neck down.
Exactly.
So what do you think that, how can I make my neck up portion strong?
I think a lot of it comes down to creating habits, then that creates discipline, because people focus on motivation, but motivation fails us when we have a death in the family, when we get injured, when we feel bad. So we kind of have to have these habits in place that has a transcendence effect to create the discipline of doing things on the days that you don't want to do it. You still do it. Much like I get up and I'll do the ice bath in the morning. I never want to get in the ice bath, but I do it because I know that will ingrain discipline in order for me to pursue other things and do other things, because we all get fragile as we get a little bit older. So I always say, be harder to kill. Whatever you can do to create more resilience to be harder to kill is all going to come from the habits that you make. And a lot of the time, it's doing things that you don't want to do. I work with people that are extremely overweight, for instance. They don't feel like doing exercise. Well, I'll always tell them, well, don't do what you feel like doing, because that's why you've got to where you are now. You have to go against the grain.
It's mainly because your brain always wants to work in a familiarity zone, right?
And it wants to be comforted. It likes nurturing.
that's we call it as comfort, but the brain, for the brain, it's a familiarity zone. I always tell people that, even when you are on the dining table in your house, you always pick the same chair all the time. You don't try a new chair.
Yeah.
Don't try to change your position. So I think it's a familiarity zone. So, but it's not very easy when it comes to breaking that. So how people can break that familiarity zone or a comfort?
It's usually, you look at the source. So for instance, if somebody wakes up late in the morning, well, you're not going to just get them to wake up earlier in the morning. You're going to get them to go to bed earlier. Look at the source of why they have this downstream effect that has negative connotations on their life. So I think looking at the sources, but then, so for instance, if that person isn't going to bed at a certain time, and, I get this with Indian clients all the time, they like to go to bed past midnight,
Yeah.
when their cortisol levels are now being higher and higher, so it's becoming a little bit more systemic into the evening, so they're not able to release serotonin, oxytocin, melatonin, etc.
Yeah.
So then we edge it back little by bit, so come January, everybody has the best intentions and they do everything.
Yeah.
And then February, those intentions are forgotten because they try to overwhelm themselves with that sense of urgency. And I think people just need to make those baby steps. So I'm not saying anybody should drink Diet Coke, but maybe you should have half a Diet Coke if Coke is your addiction, and you just need to dumb it down and make those minute changes, but then make replacements to those changes. So if that person is craving a Coke or a Diet Coke, maybe it's the carbonation. So maybe they would swap that for a sparkling water and maybe put some electrolytes in there for flavor. That can usually satisfy people.
So some people always wonder why bad habits stay with people for longer and good habits take a lot of effort to bring that in. But given a chance again, you tend to break that. Is that true?
Yeah, for sure. We have these neural pathways. We have this synapses that are connections. So whenever you turn something into a habit, let's say if you've been doing something bad for 20 days, 20 years, then of course you've got those neural pathways that just become stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
So the way I describe it is that it starts off with a little path, and then it becomes a road, then a two-lane road, then it's a freeway.
Like a highway then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now you've got to bring it back to the path and then get rid of it, grow that path over, with fresh grass, and then start again and have a different path that you work on. And those habits, those good habits, will become ingrained. Like I travel a lot, but it's very difficult for me to even think about having healthy food. It's very difficult for me not to start the day with exercise, get the blood flow to my brain, so then I'm going to make better decisions. I go to bed early so I'm not fatigued, and I'm not going to crave bad foods or make bad decisions because I'm fatigued. So I find it's very difficult for me to go off path now because I've created a new freeway.
Well, how much time you must have taken, personally, how much time you must have taken to create these new pathways?
Over the time for the past 30 years, I'd
30
say.
years.
Pardon?
Past 30 years.
Past 30 years, I've just made it deeper and deeper and deeper. Of course, some of those goals change, for a certain time. I was just trying to get as big as muscular as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And then for doing Ironman or an endurance events, I was trying to, work on my cardiovascular function, my VO2 max. And now I'm trying to decrease my biological age and increase my health span. So those goals change, but they're always good goals that I don't think it's healthy for you to have one identity. You should spread those identities.
Because you have come all the way from the US to Dubai, and there's been jet lag. I saw that the next day morning itself, you were on the gym almost for 2 to 3 hours. So I was wondering, this is another habit which you have already built in. You cannot live without that, right?
No, it's very therapeutic. A lot of people think it's maybe for aesthetic purposes, and it's not. Yeah, of course, that's great, but that's not the priority. Especially when I'm traveling, the way that I find that I get over jet lag a lot quicker is by movement. So if I'm flying, I'll get the aisle seat and I'll always go to the toilet, maybe do some toilet squats while I'm in there, stay hydrated. But then as soon as I land, I ground myself, absorb the negative ions, and then do some movement. I may not be hitting personal bests in the gym. I may choose machines over free weights because I don't want to get injured because I'm a little bit more vulnerable after all that travel. But the movement is key. It could be a swim, it could be a walk, it could be a bike. Get out in the sun and absorb the restorative red frequencies from the sun as well. So you get into that time zone. So I'll always travel knowing the time zone that I'm going into. If it's nighttime here, maybe I'm not going to eat. Maybe I'm wearing the blue light blocking glasses. So I'm telling myself it's nighttime as I'm traveling to this time zone as well.
So in a way, you become super conscious about the entire process.
Yeah, of course, because, when you go to that destination, you don't want to waste too many days trying to, get over that. So you need to be efficient with the travel to be efficient at your destination.
Yeah, and when we are talking about working out, and doing exercise, there's been a lot of studies and also discussions right now going on between the neuromuscular connectivity and also the muscle memory. So, when I'm working out, how can I make sure that my neuromuscular connectivity is maintained?
A lot of it is visualization, so I'll get my clients to study an anatomy chart. So they have an understanding of where the origins and the insertions of the muscles or the tendons attach and the direction of those muscle fibers. So they're able to visualize when they are performing those particular movements so much more efficiently. If they actually have a trainer with them in person, then I'll get them to tap those areas. Let's say if someone's working their back, but they don't really have that mind-muscle connection, get that person to tap the areas that they're targeting, and that will usually help with their contraction. And of course, this is where supplementation does have its purpose. So if you can take any ingredients that help increase vasodilation, the blood flow, citrulline, arginine, tart cherry, things like that, that can help with your contraction and that mind-muscle connection as well. I think that's very important. A lot of people just move weight just for the sake of it, not knowing why they're moving that weight. So it's always form and function over weight.
So this is a very interesting point you said, that you make the client understand about the different muscles and how they function, where they are located, and then you instruct the coach that you need to tap that point, because the client becomes aware that, okay, this is the muscle on which I'm working on right now. So once you start doing that, maybe in the beginning you start doing it, do you think that that'll get into a memory where I don't require to recollect it purposefully?
Yeah, for sure. So I don't have to think about it so much more now, but I still do, particularly on my weaker body parts. So if it's like my rear delt, I know it's a very small muscle group. It's very easy for my rhomboids, my traps, and my lats to take over. So a lot of the time I'll use a lighter weight and visualize so much more for that particular muscle group. Or if I've got injuries, I'm going to focus around those injuries that much more. And the other thing, that has definitely become apparent today is that we're very easily distracted. Most people are on their phones in between sets, chatting. Maybe it's a social encounter for them. And I think it's very important that you utilize that time, obviously, to rest and recover, but just to focus on what you're trying to achieve. Just like, some people go on plant medicine journeys. They will set their intention before they go on to that journey, or before they do their meditation, or before they do their prayer. I think it's the same thing. You should put in a proper intention before you go into the gym. And it's not the quantity, it's definitely the quality. You see people, trying to improve their sprint, their gait speed, their time, but they never improve because they're just putting in the hours and not the efforts. And it's because there's a mental disconnect to their body.
You are talking about biological age, and you are right now working out to reduce your biological age. What do you think are the most important protocols? What you think, in your personal life you follow to reduce the biological age?
Sleep is the number one.
Okay. Yeah. How many hours, or do you have something like specific timing for the sleep or duration?
So I usually go to bed at 7:30. I'm not necessarily sleeping at that time. I'll read a book. It's not something that's educational or entrepreneurship or anything like that, because that's going to get me thinking. So it'll be like a detective novel, something that will allow me to escape the day-to-day, the deadlines, the meetings, things that I have to think about, so that can lull me to sleep much more efficiently and earlier. And, I try to get like 8 hours. I mentioned that I had mold toxicity for some years, and I was only sleeping 3 hours a night. So now I've been able to improve that. And of course, now we've got quantification devices, so we can track that. And I think that keeps me much more accountable, knowing that I've got to check my sleep score the next day. Because that is going to tell me, am I going to work out today? Am I going to work out hard? Or am I going to back off? Because if my heart rate variability is down, then maybe I have to back off. So I really want to work out the next day, but I have to earn it with my sleep and my rest and my recovery.
How did you connect that with the HRV? You said if the HRV is low, you decide not to work
Oh,
out?
sorry. If it's high. If it's high.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if it's high, then I'm not. I want it. I want it a little bit lower. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So any other regimen? Sleep is one, and in addition to sleep, what other protocols? Personal protocols you maintain for reducing your biological age?
Oh, reducing. So I think earthing and grounding is a big part of that, especially if I'm spending a lot of time in cities, built-up areas, because I know I'm one of those individuals that's electrosensitive. Not everybody is, but I've recognized that in myself. So grounding is a big part of that. Trying to do whatever I can to be in a parasympathetic state throughout the day. So managing my stress, my cortisol levels, not trying to be too reactory. The other thing is, making sure that I'm eating whenever possible, wild-caught, humane-raised, grass-fed, staying away from artificial foods, refined vegetable oils, sugars, anything that's pro-inflammatory, because I know I put myself through a lot of inflammation just through the exercise. And, fasting is a good protocol to encourage, like for me on a non-training day, so I can fast a little bit. And of course, there's other supplements, fasting mimickers you can take, like spermidine and whatnot. And I've had stem cells several times, so I'm sure they all contribute. And I know it's a shotgun approach. And the other thing that I think that has benefit as well is blocking the artificial light towards the evening, or if we're spending a lot of time with low ceilings, harsh lighting, that flicker through the retina can increase cortisol levels as well. And of course, cortisol, heart disease, they kind of pair each other, and that's a leading cause of death.
When you're talking about the lights, I think, ladies and gentlemen, you must have seen the difference today, because yesterday by afternoon I was seeing that people are getting tired. So, and the lights, the ambient lighting was blue. So we changed to orange now. So you can see the difference. The people are fresh. That's something. Light is very important. I always find that light plays a very important role. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's why it's important to get that sunlight in the morning.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I think in most of the events, people use more of blue lights. For sure. Because the cameras work very well in the blue lights. That's why they use the blue lights.
Yeah.
Because when I was changing the console about to, move into orange light, they said the camera will have a problem. I said people have a problem, so let's move into orange.
Interesting. Yeah.
Anyway.
How do you take care of your joint health, being 50 and first being a bodybuilder, aiming for hypertrophy, and now running ultramarathons and Ironman and all that stuff? Do you feel the joints are not as, recoverable like you were probably 30, 35? How do you take care of your joint health? Because that becomes a major issue as you train for so many years and things like that.
Yeah, good question. My joints are great. I've never really had issues with my joints, weirdly enough, until I went to, grass-fed, humane-raised, wild-caught, organic, because, as a bodybuilder, I was consuming 6-7 meals a day, but I was consuming 6-7 meals a day with glyphosate, antibiotics that was within that food. And that's a lot of consumption. In America, the majority of antibiotics that are consumed are from the animal produce that they eat, not from the pharmacy. So I thought the inflammation that I was dealing with in my joints was just from working out. As soon as I eliminated those types of foods and went for the more organic produce, a lot of that inflammation and that joint pain went, and touch wood, it hasn't come back. Tendons and ligaments, that's different, because I've had a lot of injuries. I've participated in a lot of extreme sports. I tore my tricep, my ACL, my meniscus a few years ago, snowboarding. I've had a lot of injuries from downhill mountain biking and motocross. So they rear their ugly heads a little bit, but that's more connective tissue, which I can usually take care of with stem cells, because, I don't have any plans on slowing down anytime soon.
So what do you do for your stem cells? Like, you undergo therapies on a regular basis, or what?
Pardon?
Do you undergo stem cell therapy on a regular basis, or like?
Well, I had it first in 2017. I had an operation on my shoulder. And then I had the operation on my tricep, and I had stem cells then. And the other time that I did it, so I did it 2017, 2020, and this year, I do it for restoration as a preventative more than anything. It was to help with injuries, but now I do it just for overall health.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think it was a great insight. I think, the last
My question is, how do you arrange your rest days for recovery and your working out? What's the ratio of working out and rest?
It's usually 3 days on, 1 day off. That's the usual. If everything is in place, if my recovery is absolutely optimized. Sometimes if I've had really, really crazy workouts, then it'll be maybe 2 days on and 1 day off. So I am at this stage quite instinctive. And, obviously, like I said, if I'm traveling, then maybe I'm not going to hit free weights or really heavy weights. I'm just going to be moving, basically.
All right, so that was some great insights from Kris. Thank you, Kris, for joining this fireside chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kris. We'd love to appreciate you with a small token of appreciation, so please stay on stage for just a moment. My colleague will hand over a memento to Dr. Sajeev to hand it off to Kris. We'll take a couple of pictures and then let you rest. Thank you so much. Once again, a huge round of applause for Kris Gethin, ladies and gentlemen. And just going off on that note, I have a small itch I'd like to scratch. Kris's biological age is very different from his chronological age, and I think we talked about that as well yesterday. So there's a lot to uncover, and thank you, Kris. Thank you very much for being here with us.